James Lynch here. Happy to be joined by Eric Nicksick, the man behind Extreme Couture, who's a busy man these days, and he's going to be very busy next month because he's going to be in the corner of Sean Strickland, who's going to be fighting middleweight champion Dricus Du Plessis in their rematch. Coach, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, brother. Good to see you, James.
It's great to see you as well. And before we get obviously into this fight and everything, I know Johnnie Walker was supposed to fight this weekend. Just wanted to quickly talk about him because I know he made the move to your team. How has he been as far as, being part of the group and everything like that and coaching him? It's too bad he's not fighting on Saturday, obviously.
Yeah, he's been great. And, unfortunately, injuries happen. It was kind of the last round of the last spar. You know how it goes. But with that being said, he's only been here for maybe 3.5, 4 weeks. He was also training over at AKA, kind of back and forth with us. So really, it's a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways. It gives us more time to work and grow. So unfortunate string of events, and we're actually good friends with Bogdan as well. And so is Johnnie Walker. So I don't know, man, for whatever reason why it just felt like the fight wasn't supposed to happen. So who knows?
Wasn't meant to be, as they say, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So take me through the rematch with Strickland. I know there was some thought that maybe Khamzat Chimaev would have fought DDP. When did you find out that the fight was official? Because obviously we find out a little bit later.
Just about the same time you guys found out. I know that Sean was meeting with Hunter and they were going to try to get everything nailed down. But, the way that Khamzat beat Robert Whitaker, there was a thought in my mind that we might get leapfrogged, because Khamzat went out and did his thing and won the way he was supposed to win and beat a guy like Robert Whitaker in emphatic fashion. So, but it was up to the promotion and however they were going to handle it. And I know that they promised Sean that he was going to get that rematch and, they stuck by their words.
Yeah. And in terms of like the length of camp, I know Sean's training all the time. He's one of those guys you probably have to kick out of the gym, if anything, to take some time off. But how long of a camp has it been since you found out, I guess, since the fight was announced, basically kind of zoning in on DDP?
Sure. It's a full camp. He's been in here and training. He just might've been a little fatter during the time of when we found out, but no, he's always in the rooms, constantly training. So, but now of course, like, he was always in to help like Mansoor. He was in here helping all the other guys. So now the focus has shifted over to him and his camp and his details of his game plan.
And everything with him and Chris Curtis good. I know Chris kind of gave us a bit of insight on media day. I know they're long friends, but I even heard behind the scenes that there was something happening there. And I know you're probably like, not again. Everything's good there because that probably wasn't a great start to camp with that.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things. We're all brothers, and we fight amongst each other, and this isn't like a game or a sport or we're not in a job field where tempers won't flare, and it happens. So the beautiful thing about it is if you have a thing you guys want to work out or figure out, we got an octagon, a 30-foot cage, says human resources on there. Hop in there and figure your shit out. So that's kind of why we leave it.
Did you feel like Jerry Springer a bit in that moment?
Yeah, but Sadibou was probably the more level-headed out of all of us to the point where I was like, Sadibou's like, I just threw him in the cage. I'm like, all right, glove up. You guys go in there and figure it out. And Sadibou's like, are we sure we should do this?
Right.
And I was like, no, I'm not sure about any of this stuff, but I'm here. I'm tired of hearing these two go back and forth. And I don't want to see somebody get hit and fall on the concrete. So put them in the cage and they can figure it out.
And just quickly on Chris, obviously a tough fight on Saturday with the stoppage and all that. Just I know obviously everyone was kind of talking about the way the fight finished. Is there much a fighter can do? I guess it's really up to the referee, right? So.
Yeah, in that particular instance, I told Chris, like, hey, you got head kicked or you hit his shoulder, hit his head. It knocked him off balance. That's on us. We got hit with the kick, so don't put Mark Smith in a position where has to make a decision. So we have to take accountability for what happened on our end. But, I went through details of this on the Versus podcast. I kind of broke everything down, but it really had to do with more with the back of the house before the fight happened when Chris had his concerns about the stalling aspect, and none of those things fell, from what Mark Smith told us he was going to do. If there was stalling throughout round 2, which we saw, and he took no action. So I think I was just more upset about the overall complexity of the fight, that Mark just kind of didn't do anything that he said he was supposed to do in the back. So that's kind of what I was more about. I apologize for getting heated the way that I did, but it's the fight game. Seeing these guys put their 8 weeks, put their lives on hold to go and try to fight, and then in that moment get it taken away it sucks. It hurts, but it is what it is. Don't put ourselves in that situation and it won't happen.
Chris is talking about maybe going back down to 170. Is that kind of, because I know he's had a couple losses now at 185. Is that something you guys have discussed, or is that more on his end? He'd probably come to you and think if that's an option for him.
Well, it's something he's discussed for a long period of time. He's always fought at 170, and he got into the UFC on short notice, taking that fight at 185. And it was just kind of the mentality was he was playing with house money, and he would win. And then I was like, okay, then we had the loss against, Jack Hermanson. And then it was like, oh, well, maybe I'm a little undersized. And then it was like fighting Imanov, and Imanov was freaking huge, and then, you fight Brendan Allen. He's a huge dude and a big guy for the weight class. So, but it's always been there. And at the end of the day, like that option is always going to be for Chris. He's made the welterweight limit before. So he's just going to have to do, just like what Puna did. He's going to have to get his diet on point and change his S&C if that's what he's going to do and move down to welterweight. But it's either now or never, man. Like if you're going to do it. And let's not talk about it anymore.
As far as camp for Sean, anything different for the rematch with DDP? I mean, you guys had a lot of success in that first fight, so probably don't want to change too much. But take me through sort of what camp's looking like for Strickland leading into the fight.
We have some great training partners out here for him and some great looks, but Sean hates watching his old fights. He just hates it. But I'm sat down with him and kind of forced him just to see the things that I saw from my vantage point. And then to clarify these points on, hey, if we did this better, if we got away from this, had you done this, and just to try to prove the point that like, hey, there's optics that we need to take advantage of that are going to help the scoring criteria lean in our favor. But yeah, I venture to guess that, knowing DDP and his camp, that they're going to come out with some different wrinkles that we have to prepare for, some of the things that we have to do better on our end. And, dude, Sean, you got to be a dog, man. Like you really have to take the fight to this guy and just kind of sitting back and jabbing your way through the fight. A lot of judges kind of lose sight of that jab, although it's effective and it's scoring. We need to find some other things that are going to help that scoring criteria look better on our part. And, that's part of our game plan.
Who is Strickland working with as far as bodies in the gym right now? Is it usual guys? Anyone different, or is it just sort of the usual cast of characters at Extreme?
Oh, I mean, guys coming in and out. We had some really good Brazilian guys in here with Cesar Almeida. Cesar Almeida helped a ton as well. Right now we have Ebo. Ebo just got back into the gym. Johnny Eblen gets in this week. Edmund Shabazian's been sparring him a ton. Sada Boussy's back in the room now. So he's got just a great group of guys, but definitely Johnny Eblen's going to give us the best look I think that we're going to get for Dricus. And Johnny gets in this week and he'll be here all the way up until we leave for Australia.
I think that's so cool, by the way. I know Bellator is officially dead now, but the fact that like he and Sean have like kind of developed this really cool like working relationship, and I know they're friends too, just from another organization, I think is so awesome because like, it's iron sharpens iron, right? And I think it's helped Johnny as well too, getting to work with Sean.
Oh man, Johnny's one of the best dudes I've ever met, like just as a human being, but athletically talented, championship pedigree. And these two really genuinely feed off of one another. Johnny hit me up, this is years ago now, and I was out of town. There was like a day that I was out of town that I wasn't going to be in the gym, that Johnny was coming in. And I was so worried because I was like, I'm not going to be there to like kind of tell Strickland like this guy's an ally, and like how's this all going to work out?
Yeah.
And then so I hit Sean. I was like, hey, Johnny Eblen's coming in. He's a good friend of mine. He wants to try to train at the gym a little bit and kind of split some time. So take him, like, don't be a dick. Basically, that's kind of what I was leading to. And Sean and Johnny just hit it off right from the jump. So by the time I get back into town, Sean just holds him hostage. He's like, he's my guy. He's training with me all week long. So right away, those guys hit it off, and they've been incredible training partners for one another. And I certainly appreciate Johnny taking the time to come out and train with us, and Sean will go out there and train with him. So they have a great working relationship.
When are you guys getting to Australia? Have you got your itinerary yet and all that?
No, nothing, not yet. What I was told, we were going to leave on the 31st, so January 31st to get us out there. And I know Tatiana's leaving even earlier. I think she's leaving on the 25th, so she'll be out there even before us.
Cool. That's great. How's this one playing out? Obviously, you like your guy, and he's going to get it done, but how do you see the rematch going? Is there a possibility we could see a Strickland finish in this fight?
I mean, that's what you game for, right? That's what you game plan for, and you hope so, because, at the end of the day, you lose these narrow split decisions. You think you did enough, but you didn't, and you have to go back and you have to look at these things. So, but there's a big difference between the Sean Strickland that fought Izzy And there was a big difference between the Sean Strickland that fought Dricus. I told Sean this, just when we were watching the game plan, I said, or the tape, you fought Izzy with nothing to lose. We fought Dricus not to lose. So there was a difference there. And here's my points of what I need you to do to try to make this game plan go the way where if it does go to the judges, there's no question. So that's my goal, and that's what I hope to see on February 8th.
We obviously got the big card on Saturday, Islam Arman. Just your take on that fight, the rematch between Islam and Arman. Probably one of the best fights on paper this year.
100%, man. Like I just as a coach, man, like just a matchup dream. I love to see what these guys going to game plan for, how they're going to their approach, their attack. The first fight was fireworks. I mean, Arman taking that fight on short notice. I think it was in St. Petersburg, Russia, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, and and really hit the ground running. And he has one loss since then versus Gamrot, and that was a very controversial loss at that. So this guy just kept growing and growing. Same with Islam. So when you look at the odds, you're like, damn, this to me is a lot narrow than it should be. But I don't know, man. I don't know how I'm looking forward to see how this whole thing plays out. What approach these two great camps are going to have.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close. I do think Islam probably takes it, but
Sure.
if any guy can do it, it could be Arman, just with that potential, and just, he does different things that you don't see other lightweights do in the cage, which is really
man, he looks good too. Like he's in shape. He looks ready to go, comes from a great camp. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this matchup.
And then Umar and Merab, just your thoughts on that fight. Cause that's another kind of fight that I don't think the odds really reflect what the fight's going to look like.
Yeah, it's a guy like Umar who could strike out of both stances, but also can back it up with his grappling. But how's he going to manage his energy? How's he going to manage his pace? Because I've seen Merab in here, the way the guy can gas pedal people, he is the machine. Mm-hmm. And if Merab wins, I think he wins by decision. I think if Umar wins, I think he wins by knockout. You have to put Merab out. That's the way you have to beat the guy. So very interesting matchup. I would love to see how the grappling shakes out. Just knowing that Khabib style, where these guys don't get held down, they create scrambles, and they're not only that, they can submit you off their back, they can submit you from up top. Whereas Merab's more of a pressure kind of top side style of grappler. Haven't seen Merab off his back, so I'm kind of interested to see if there's some gamemanship when it comes to the grappling side of things. But if it stays on their feet, I think Umar has the advantage there, where Merab really has to fake that level change and show the threat of the takedown to set his hands up. So we'll see how they tie each other in.
If all goes well, Sean Strickland gets his belt back. How does a fight with him and Chimaev go? Because you've actually had Chimaev a bit in the gym, not enough, I'm sure, to make like a huge assessment. But
sure.
What do you make of if that fight was to happen, Sean and Chimaev?
It's gonna be a fucking war, right? With that cartoon where you see the two dogs and there's the big ball of dust, right. And
exactly,
limbs and tails and everything flying around. That's what you're going to see, man. Like just two ultimate competitors, two great fighters getting after it. So, I mean, we get our job done versus DDP, and we're going to have our hands full, versus Khamzat. I can't wait.
It finally looks like Magomed Ankalaev is going to fight Alex Pereira. Ariel Helwani had the tweet last week, which is great. Will you be working with him for that fight, or because I know he does some of his stuff back in Russia as well?
Yeah, I haven't seen Ankalaev for the last camp. I think he stayed back home. I think a lot of that has to do with proximity of where the fight's going to be.
Good point.
But he did 8 camps in a row with us here at Extreme because most of his fights were in America. So it really depends on where the fight location would be, if he's going to be out here or not. And it's interesting because Ankalaev has been a great training partner for Sean, and we see now Alex Pereira is a great training partner for Sean. So I don't know if he's going to feel comfortable coming out here because of that relationship that they have. But who's ever in our gym and getting the work, we keep it indoors, and you're part of the family when you're here. So me personally, I have a working relationship with Ankalaev and his coach. So I would love for him to come back and be able to get his work in with us.
Did you get to enjoy the holidays at all? Did you get any time off? So that's a no then, I guess. What did you have on the holidays? Because I guess there's fighters outside the UFC, right? So.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all in camp, so we didn't have any fights. We didn't have to travel, but everybody has a fight coming up. So we trained on Christmas, we trained on New Year's, we trained on Christmas Eve. Everything remained the same. The gym was closed to the regular members, but pro team was here, and we were doing everything we're supposed to do essentially. So a lot of big fights are coming up, and that's just that's the sport. There's no off season for us.
If there's anyone you want to mention or anything you want to plug before we get out of here, as I always will, I'll give you the last word.
No, man. Just it's good to be back on. It's nice to have fights again and get back in the swing of things. So I appreciate you having me on.